Gonna get started here in just a couple of minutes. How many people here in the chamber is it their first planning commission meeting that they've attended? All right. Who's got the bows and arrows and the slings and the fires and everything on the public comment? Usually that's typically why people come. So we'll do our best to switch gears. For most of you are business people on some level, when you go from one meeting to another, your mind might be a little scrambled in getting it done. So bear with us for a second. We literally had to walk out of a meeting early to get to this one. My name is Jason Hanson. I'm the chair of the Planning Commission. I've been on the Planning Commission for about 5 or 6 years now. And I have a background in the investment and finance is my background in my profession. And I was appointed by Mayor Nielsen, I guess 5 or 6 years ago. Cody, would you explain just briefly who you are and what your background is so people will know?
Cody Mitchell, born and raised here in Washington. Currently have a business here in Washington as well. Is that enough?
Yeah, your background is construction, right?
Construction.
Right? Yeah.
And steel fabrication.
All right. Latai?
My background is in banking and finance, and I live here in Washington Fields for 7 years now.
Awesome. Pete?
I'm Pete Bullock. I've been here for about 20 years. My background is steel fabrication.
Thank you. Sheil?
Doug Schill. I'm lived here for 7 years. I have a background of construction, grew up in construction, but I sell and lease commercial real estate for the last 20 years.
Corey?
Corey Anderson. I have a background in construction, design, and land use. For the last 25 years, I own a local construction company here in town.
Awesome. Thank you. I think it helps for people that have come for the first time that we're a committee that is appointed by our city council, and the meetings that we have, we vet and see projects or things that are filed with the city, and we vet those, and we typically are recommending to the city council our recommendation for approval or denial. And so that's what our task is here. And this is our meeting for June 21st, 2023. The way it's going to start is we'll have an invocation by Commissioner Mitchell, and we'll have Commissioner Bullock lead us in saying the Pledge of Allegiance after that. Commissioner Mitchell.
Our dear Father in heaven, we're grateful to be here this evening. We're thankful for the time we have to attend this meeting. We're grateful for this city that we live in. We're grateful for all those who participate and work diligently to make this a great place to live. We pray now so that would be with each of us as we go throughout the agenda items this evening, that we can do so in a calm and orderly fashion, and that everyone can share their thoughts and ideas, and that we can come to a good conclusion that will be best for everyone. And we thank Thee in this we pray and do so in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Please rise.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, commissioners. This is Drew Ellerman here. He works for the city in the planning department. He's our city planner, I think is your title. Is that right, Drew?
Community Development Director.
Okay.
Eldon's the city planner.
Okay. All right. And then, yeah, I demoted you. Sorry. And then Thad down here is our city attorney, and he helps us with some of the legal questions and things that we come up with. This evening, the first item on the agenda is to approve the agenda from the commissioners. I'll look for a motion once you've had a chance to look at the agenda if you feel like there's nothing that needs to be changed or altered.
This is Commissioner Bullock. I make a motion to approve the agenda for June 21st, 2023.
Second.
Commissioner Tupou, I agree. I second that.
I've got a first and a second on the agenda being set as is. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? All right. The agenda is set as is for the record. And by the way, this meeting is broadcast on YouTube, and it is kept in perpetuity is not the right word, is it? Didn't sound right. It's kept forever. It's part of the record. Yeah. Next, I'll look for approval of the minutes from our previous meeting, which was June 7th, 2023. We've received a copy of those from Melody. If there's any changes that you haven't discussed with her, please do so at this time. Otherwise, I'll look for a motion as well on those to approve the minutes.
This is Commissioner Tupou. I make a motion to approve the minutes from June 7th, 2023.
Ms. Shill, I second.
We got a first and a second on the minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
Is there any opposed or any abstention? Okay. Not here, don't have to vote. All right. Minutes are approved on the record as well. Item number 3, this is the opportunity for declaration of any reason for abstention or conflict. Typically, as commissioners, when we're out in the community with business happening daily, we run into situations where we might have a conflict or a need to abstain from a vote. Typically, it has to do with financial. Legally, it has to do with financial. If we have a financial stake in one of the projects that we see, we have to note that. Or you can also, for personal reasons, abstain because you might have a conflict. For tonight's agenda item, Commissioners, is there anything that needs to be put on the record for any of the items?
No.
It doesn't look like there are any, so we'll move forward with the agenda. First item, number 4, this is a public hearing for consideration and recommendation to the City Council for Majestic Fields Partial Final Plat Amendment A, located approximately 3250 South Washington Fields Road. The applicant is Austin Christensen and Mainline Engineering, and I'll turn the time over to staff for their report.
Thank you, Commissioners. The reason for this amendment is to extend the boundary of the Majestic Fields subdivision, specifically Majestic Fields Lot 14, which will encompass 2 acres to the south. No other changes are being made at this time. Staff has reviewed the proposed amended final plat and finds it conforms to the R110 and RA1 zoning of this development. The subdivision also remains in compliance with the subdivision ordinance of the city. As noted during the April 12, 2023 zone change request, access to the 2-acre piece of this property will be from the applicant's residential home, which is located at 646 East Pine Street. Access from Washington Fields Road to the 2-acre piece does not meet Washington City's access management requirements. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission recommend approval of the Majestic Fields amended subdivision, adding 2 acres to the subdivision by extending the boundaries of Lot 14, and that's onto the City Council, and based on the findings and conditions in the report. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Thanks, Eldon. Commissioners, any initial questions or comments for staff? This is Commissioner Hanson. Eldon, I have a quick one. At least I think it's quick. You mentioned that it doesn't meet the entrance from Washington Fields Road. It doesn't meet the city standard there. Could it ever, or what does that require? I mean, is it something possible we might see in the future? They might want an entrance right there?
Yeah, that's a great question. That 2-acre piece would never meet access management.
Never?
It would need to join property from the south to get access to it.
Okay.
Access could come from the north. Like this applicant is doing Lot 14, will now have access from Pine Street.
So it'd be similar to his access that he would have now. It would be with them if he sold pieces of this off, but
Correct.
realistically, for the time being, not possible coming from Washington Fields Road.
Yeah, he could never break off a piece, sell it, and get access from Washington Fields Road. That would not meet our access management requirements.
All right.
So what's that easement for right next? You know, isn't there like a 20-foot easement there?
I think it's a storm drain.
Is there a storm drain in there now?
There is.
So we can't build on top of that?
Correct.
I don't know if this necessarily matters, but is the intent still to parcel this out as possible sale to lot 12 and 13 and 15?
From my understanding, his intent's to keep it all at this point.
Okay.
So does it really need to be put into that subdivision, or can it just stay agricultural?
We rezoned it to RA1, so that's where we're at this point.
Because of improvements that the owner's doing, they have to tie it in with this lot.
Is that right? By tonight, if this goes through city council as an approval, it would allow him to sell it to the others if he wanted to in the future? Is that correct? Parcel this out and sell it to
Not
the
parcel
others?
it out. He could do lot line adjustments and give them a little bit more square feet, but it'll always be tied to him. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because any of these property, like if lot number 13 wanted to give 12 7 feet, they could do, as long as they don't go under the minimum lot size in the zoning. They can do lot line adjustments between property owners. You could all do that in your neighborhoods right now. So, sell your neighbor, give him whatever, 2 or 3 feet, as long as you still met setbacks on your home, etc. I'm just answering that question generally for you on that. That's not the plan right here, but they could not create a new lot back here because it'd have to have access, street access.
Okay. Commissioners, anything else that comes to mind initially before I open it up for a public hearing? Eldon, thank you very much. This is a public hearing, which is, I think all the items tonight are public hearings. They are. So for those of you that raise your hand that this is the first time that you've come to a planning commission meeting, the public hearing, so this is a planning commission meeting that you've been invited to as guests, as the public. And the public hearings are interesting. In the 5 or 6 years I've been doing this, they're all over the place. There's a reason there's a police officer in the back, we'll put it that way. There's some of them are great. We had a meeting, the previous meeting we had, it was, I don't want to say it was confrontational, but the community came and had very good comments, and they were respectful, and we took from them what we needed to. The purpose of the public hearing is to make your comments, to get them on the record. It goes on the record, it goes to city council. They're the ones that make the decision on any of these things that we're talking about this evening, and that's what it's for. It's not intended for necessarily discussion, argument. You guys are idiots, we're not, whatever it might be. I can be super respectful and I can be super upset at the same time. And it's not that we're not on people's side or against people's side, but when somebody comes up and starts yelling at us and telling us we're not doing our job, we had a guy walk out last meeting after he told us how terrible we were, and I thought, I don't think we're doing anything terrible. He just didn't like what we were saying or what we were listening to. So the public hearing is awesome. The comments that we received this evening on all the items were great. I'm looking forward to hearing about some of the other things about that. But with regards to this particular item, I'll open up the public hearing. So anybody who would like to speak to this item, please come forward to the microphone and state your name for the record. Melody is recording in the other room for our notes. And just make sure you get your name on the record, because it does go to city council and they do read these things. And we ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes. So is there anybody who would like to speak on this particular item? It does not look like we have anybody who would like to speak here in the chamber. Craig, come on up.
My name's Greg McCombs. I live in Sienna Hills. I just had a question for our planner. Are all the other lots in that subdivision R1A or RA1? Just that one large funny shaped lot?
Just the bottom part of that 14. Washington City allows dual zoning on one lot. The top part will still be R110 where my arrow is, and the 2 acre piece down below will be the RA1.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
I'm Catherine Staley of Orrin K. Staley Farms, and we're the neighbor right next to the 2 acre piece. And we know what they're going to do with it, and we're fine with it. In fact, we'll work well together, and we understand that it's you know, that if there's any change, that they'll come to us first and talk about it. So I just want you to know that we're behind them. Thank you.
Thanks, Catherine. Anybody else? All right. I'll go ahead and close the public hearing at this time, and I'll open the floor, commissioners, back up to you for any questions or comments for staff or the applicant.
So this is Commissioner Mitchell. So the only thing that's changed since it came through prior, right, which was 2 weeks, month ago? Is this the same piece? Yeah. They put the storm drain in? Was that the change? Or what additional changes have been made in this since the
Not really. We did the zone change and told you they would be coming back to amend their
okay.
plat.
I got it. This is the
So
plat.
because to tie
Originally it
this
was the
in
zoning.
to, accomplish what they need to accomplish.
Okay.
Yeah. It's been a long process, I'll just say that. And this is finally the culmination of all those things, so.
Okay. Perfect.
I think it's super cool, to be honest. I think it's so cool that I'm surprised, and maybe it will, that 12, 13, and 14 lots don't look to try to take a piece off and then build a barn just like it, which I don't have a problem with this project at all from the beginning. I've actually liked it. So I don't have anything to add to it.
Well, can I make a motion?
Yep, absolutely.
This is Shill. I'd like to move that the Planning Commission recommend approval of the Majestic Fields amended subdivision, adding 2 acres to the subdivision by extending the boundaries of Lot 14, and pass that on to the City Council for approval.
Commissioner Anderson, I second.
I've got a motion by Commissioner Shield. I've got a second by Commissioner Anderson. We're going to go individual voting with Tupou.
Aye.
Shield,
Aye.
Anderson,
Aye.
Bullock.
Aye.
I'm Hanson. I'm an aye as well. This motion passes unanimously, and we'll send that to City Council with our recommendation for approval. As kind of a side note, Commissioner Mitchell is the newest commissioner, and he is, I don't know if they alternate. So if one of us is not here, he will vote. And so he didn't vote on this item because all the commissioners are here, but he's absolutely welcome to, and he does participate in any commenting and things like that, just not the voting. So we'll go ahead and move to the next item. This is item number 5A. This is also a preliminary plat. It's public hearing as well for consideration and recommendation to the City Council for Cottam Industrial Subdivision preliminary plat located approximately 1300 East Washington Dam Road. The applicant is Rosenberg Associates, and I'll turn the time over to staff for the report.
Hi, my name is Dylan.
Wait, before you come up there, real quick, let's hear the staff. Sorry, Dylan, right behind you. He's right behind you.
Sorry about that.
Thank you, commissioners. This particular subdivision is proposing 7 lots on an area covering 14.10 acres. The zoning designation at this location is Industrial 1 and Industrial 2. The surrounding zoning is Industrial 2 to the north and east, and Industrial 1 to the south and west. The grading and drainage will be completed by the end user with the improvements to their specific parcel. The proposed subdivision conforms to the approved zoning. The request meets the subdivision requirements and other city ordinances as it relates to this location. Staff has reviewed the request and recommends approval with conditions of the preliminary plat as outlined. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission recommend approval of the preliminary plat for the Cottam Industrial Subdivision onto the City Council based on the following findings and subject to the following conditions in the report. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
All right, commissioners, I'll open the floor.
This is Shill. It's just a little confusing to me. I like the industrial opportunities. So we have kind of that dog leg coming down. There's going to be access to those lots. Is that correct? There? Well,
Right there?
so is this part of it?
No.
Okay, so all we're talking is this right here.
The LBL Ventures is not included. It's just the pieces that have access off of the proposed roadway. 1300 East. There we go.
Yeah. Okay. So that's all we're talking about. So 1, 2, 3, 4 lots, is that correct?
7 total.
That piece by LBL Ventures, what, I know it's not part of this, but what are they zoned as?
Industrial.
Have they had any talks about getting access to them so that piece can never be used one day?
They have an access easement to their property. Uh-huh.
Through where?
The subdivision OK Corrals, Morgan Road.
Okay, I see it. All right.
Down here. Oops.
So this, Commissioner Anderson, what's the, I mean, if they're all going to be doing their own individual drainage later, what's the plan for LID and storm drain? I mean, you're putting something in this big, it's kind of hard to say they're just going to all drain it onto the street. I mean, it kind of needs to have some LID storm drain to go along with it. I mean, I get not grading each individual lot out, but you got to have at least a plan for where's the retention basin, where's the storm drains going to be, and so forth. I don't see any of that.
The on-site LID will come on with each parcel. They'll have their own detention basin, retention basin specific for their water flow that they're accumulating. And we're okay with that.
Now, is that only for 1 acre or larger? So like lot 7 is under an acre, so does that apply to them or not?
No, there's no acreage requirement.
Because I know that the LID requirement is an acre or larger, but I don't know if that applies to industrial or if that's just residential.
All new development, commercial, industrial, needs to abide by the LID, regardless of lot size.
It just seems like they'd be smarter to put in a central storm drain thing, because I mean, doing a detention basin on each of these lots is going to take 1/4 of their entire lot. That's a pretty big waste to have 7 detention basins on there. It's a loss of a lot of property just to not put in storm drain initially.
I'd say that's something we'll ask the developer when he does stand, or the gentleman that stood up. Maybe we can get an answer for that.
I bring this up, and I know this is industrial, but I mean, like Country Way Estates, for example, you know, when it was done, and it's residential, but when it was done, they didn't do any of this on some of the lots. Some of the lots they did, and some of the lots they didn't. And when people ended up buying a lot and tried to put a house in or whatever, they ended up, they bought an acre lot and ended up putting in, 1/4 of it in retention basin that they have to maintain and get, signed off every single year. And it's kind of a shock that you think you've got an acre piece to work with, and then you actually don't for something that could have been handled at this stage.
And when we meet with those future lot owners, it's very clear to them right off the bat, hey, we need to satisfy these LID requirements.
Right. I mean, it's not cheap. I mean, the LID for each of these lots is going to be $50,000 in site work and $15,000 in engineering. I just think it's a lot more.
It has to be looked at every year.
And then it's got to be, certified. It just seems like it'd be a lot more cost effective for them to, to think about storm drain and LID from the preliminary plat process rather than just dumping it on the end user. I just don't think that's very good planning.
Yeah.
Currently, the subdivisions that surround this piece are built the same way. They all have their own individual retention basins. So as far as like the area that this is going fits what's currently around it and what's there.
But newer stuff is not going that way. I mean, newer stuff is actually, the whole point is that if it's newer, putting in a new road, trying to make it a cohesive plan.
And a lot of this is existing already. If you've been out there, they're just kind of creating and
no, I know,
breaking it up.
Putting in a new road.
There's a few new lots is all there is. The rest of it's already existing kind of businesses running with everything in them and stuff, so that helps on your,
So if it's existing, do they already have detention ponds or piping underneath? They haven't
I'm
worried
not sure
about-
how they accounted for that. I'm not,
Yeah, it's been there, I don't know, for as long as I can remember. I mean, since I rode my horse there. It's been like it is.
All right, Eldon, thank you. I'm going to open this up to the public hearing as well. Is there anybody in the chamber that would like to speak to item number 5A? It doesn't look like we have anybody. We did not receive any comments prior to the meeting as well. I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. And then you were the applicant or what's your role, if you don't mind coming to the mic?
Yeah, my name is Dylan Hall. I'm with Rosenberg Associates. I'm the applicant. I'm the designer on this project. Yeah, I'm the designer on this project.
And it's Dylan Hall, right?
Yes.
Dylan, do you have an answer for Commissioner Anderson's question about the?
There should be another plan with what you guys have. There is storm drain, a retention basin or detention basin at the end of the road there on Lot 2 next to the existing buildings. And there's a storm drain that goes up to the subdivision to the north that could tie into or work with.
That's my question, is just, it just makes a lot more sense to tie into it and maybe make it a little community, and you got a lot better project. You don't have to do it
It's
now
something
than
we
later.
could look into, but as far as I know, that other than taking it out into Washington Dam Road, I'm not sure what other storm drain there is. We'd have to tie it into everything into Lot 2 and then take it up to the subdivision to the north. And it's just something we'd have to look into, but at this time, I don't have a exact answer on that.
Any other questions for Dylan or anything else to be addressed on this item? Dylan, anything else you want to add that wasn't added or?
No, I
All right.
think we're all good.
Okay, thank you. All right. The first of many appearances. This is, go ahead, John.
In regards to the stormwater and stuff, most of all of our new industrial developments and stuff, they all do individual lot stormwater based. Basically, not knowing the size of the buildings, what's going to be paved, what our impervious surface is and stuff, it'd be next to impossible to properly design a storm drain basin to carry the entire subdivision. So most everybody, they go to the individual storm drain.
So while it makes sense, it's not very realistic, I guess.
I agree on a bigger project where this is so small and you're going to be taking a fourth of every lot to do it. That's so why it's just, they can do how they want, but I wouldn't do it this way.
Yeah. Thanks, John. We'll see you again. He doesn't like coming up here. We like to get him up here. It's pretty fun. I have a sneaky suspicion tonight we might see him again, being in charge of the roads. Commissioners, I don't have anything further on this. If there's additional discussion, let's have that, or comments. Otherwise, I'll look for a motion.
This is Commissioner Bullock. I'll make a motion to recommend approval of the preliminary plat for the Cotton Industrial Subdivision onto the City Council based on the two findings and the 12 conditions.
Is Commissioner Tupou, I second that.
I've got a motion by Commissioner Bullock. I have a second by Commissioner Tupou. Individual voting, Tupou?
Aye.
Shield?
On the fence, how's that?
I don't know if we have a category for that. I'll come back to you. Tupou is aye. Anderson?
Hey.
Bullock?
Aye.
Back of the fence. Shield?
Well, I guess I would lead to a nay. I think, I mean, the explanation was that they didn't know what the size of the buildings were going to be, which I understand that, but I think you look at basically what they can put on there would be maybe a 40% coverage rate. So I think that didn't satisfy me, so I'm going to lean to an A. Did I confuse you?
No? I'm thinking through something here.
And just so you know, I'm not against the project at all. I just think a little bit clearer plan just needs to be put just a little more thought into the storm drain, not just saying, oh, we'll just deal with it later when these lots are so small. That's all.
The reason I'm kind of pausing is if there's concern that you have and they're valid concerns, before I cast a vote, if it goes to a yes and it goes to city council approval, I want to make sure that it's addressed, what you guys are saying. I don't know if I believe it's enough for me to vote no, but I want to make sure that it's legitimized. Does that make sense?
So here's why. Let me explain why I voted negative. So some of these lots are so small, like take lot 7, for example. You want, I mean, this is supposed to be valuable industrial property that you can do something with, but if you put individual storm drain on each one, you're losing a fourth of it. Plus you've got, parking, this and that. Before you know it, you can't put anything valuable on it. That's all. It makes it a lot more valuable property if you have a little bit of thought put into it where that storm drain can be collected to. So industrial land is valuable, and to just haphazardly say, we'll put a road in there and let people figure it out and it'll take a huge chunk of the property, that cuts the value of the industrial. That's all. So I just think it just needs to have a little bit better thought out plan. That's all. I'm not against the project at all. It just,
and it takes away the usable space.
yeah, it just decreases the value of it.
So can I share another thought? So my facility is similar to this, and to say that the detention basin, I mean, it was a little bit frustrating for me, to have that. But from my perspective, we made it happen, and the individuals who buy these lots will have to buy them with the idea that it's required. So, and if you look at the general area of the whole, it'll be similar to what's there. So it's not like it's unexpected and not going to work. Yeah, in a different location or different, I could see maybe the need to change it, but ideally you can still put a building on that size of piece with the idea that you'll have your retention pond. So I mean, it works, but I understand, yeah, maybe not the best scenario, and yeah, you would like to have your space.
Well, I mean, my answer would be, we have the opportunity for them to do a better job at it. And I mean, your property, for example, if it were tied into a centralized, storm drain or detention basin or whatever, you could have a much bigger, building on your property. Your property would be worth more. You could do more. You could, build more. It just makes it more valuable. That's all.
I think, like the old saying goes, fences make good neighbors. Maybe a storm drain makes good neighbors too, where you're not, taking care of your neighbor's stormwater.
That is a matter of procedure. The motion is still open, and it's 2-2, and I have not yet voted. I feel like this needs more discussion amongst us really quick. What do I need to do, if anything? Do we continue to discuss this, or I need to make I almost want to deny it only so we can turn around and either talk about a new motion or where we can continue this discussion? Because I think it's very valid what they're saying, but I want to vote yes. I just don't want to pass it off that wasn't important.
So you can always exercise your authority as the chairman to continue discussion. I think that by indicating your thoughts, folks will at least understand what you're doing as far as discussing more before the vote. My concern legally would be that a denial for doing the storm drain in a way that's allowed by the city is a bit of a stretch. And so maybe your motion wouldn't deny the project so much as it would advise the council to see if, another idea with the storm drain might be a better option than what was presented. So instead of just denying it and saying it shouldn't go forward, because that's come forward with a storm drain option that is acceptable within our code and our policy. You just provide your comment as to what you'd like the council to hear and consider when they look at it too.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and vote aye, and the motion passes 3-2. I know that you'll be at city council meetings as well as the staff. I would expect that would probably be brought up if it needs to be, that there is a valid, if for some reason city council misses this in the notes or the minutes, then I think that you guys will do that. I trust that. All right. Motion passes. We'll send that to city council with recommendation for approval. Item number, sir, I saw you raise your hand. I don't want to necessarily ignore you, but it was definitely a little out of character.
There's another way to solve that. You're going to spend $50,000 under your foundation. You can put a drain system all around the building rocket. In the engineering, probably for about $25,000, and you don't have to have a pond and go right over.
Okay.
In your parking lot, things like that.
There you go. I don't think any of the record got that, but that's fine. There you go. And I think that I kind of look at it that I trust that the people that are at a higher pay grade, so to speak, than myself know that, the engineers that are going to do this project. We're not, I appreciate it. And I think that the people that need to hear it heard it. Yeah. We'll go ahead and move to item number 6A. And this is the last item on our agenda this evening. I think this is why most people are here. This is a public hearing as well for consideration and recommendation to City Council for a zone change request, Z-23-08, the Red Waters subdivision, to remove stop signs located along Country Way. The applicant is Curtis Larson. Curtis, are you here? Okay. Applicant is Curtis Larson, and I'll turn the time over to staff for their report.
Thank you, Commissioners. On August 28, 2019, zone change request Z-19-08 for the Sunrise Valley Planned Unit Development, which is this development here that we're looking at, was approved by City Council. During this approval, City Council added the condition that four-way stop signs will be added along Country Way at all of the intersections. There's currently 4 intersections there, as you can see on the red dots. During this zone change, public comments were received and expressed concern with traffic. The City Council discussed options, which included raised sidewalk, crossings, speed humps, roundabouts, and stop signs. And the condition of adding stop signs along Country Way was approved. Curtis Larson, who lives in Sunrise Valley, has gathered video of the area and noted 3 safety concerns, along with environmental reasons why the stop signs should be removed. Attached in the reports is a link to that information that Curtis gathered. I'll quickly note the 3 safety concerns are: number 1, overuse of stop signs cause drivers to ignore the stop signs. Number 2, drivers tend to find the path of least resistance, forcing traffic through the neighborhoods which do not have stop signs. And number 3, stop signs are not effective for speed control and can actually increase vehicle speed. Some of the environmental concerns were noise pollution, vehicle wear and tear, federal manual on uniform travel control device states there should be a minimum of 300 counts for these stop signs, which have not been met. So with this being said, staff supports City Council's condition of adding stop signs along Country Way and is always open to discuss options that may increase safety for the public and general well-being of the neighborhood and community. When discussing, please keep in mind that the amenity area for the entire Sunrise Valley subdivision is the park area, which also serves as a trailhead connection point for the larger trail system that follows the river and connects many miles of public trail. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission make a recommendation onto the City Council regarding the stop signs located on Country Way at the intersections of Palm Cove Avenue, Oak Creek Drive, Fork Creek Drive, and Tributary Drive. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thanks, Eldon. So, Commissioners, I'll turn the time over to you for additional questions, or initial questions, sorry, for staff.
Something not noted in my report is Mr. Larson's idea of flashing crosswalks for pedestrians along Palm Cove Avenue and Oak Creek Drive. If I'm thinking correctly, we can clear that up with him. But that was kind of his thoughts and ideas that would work well for this area.
If I was walking, I want to clarify something. I think there's a few things I want to say, and again, I guess being the chair, it's kind of interesting because you get the microphone, you can say whatever you want, but there's a couple of things for people to know. I haven't talked to anybody up here about this, with the exception of Pete. About an hour ago, I asked him, hey, what do you think of the stop signs? And we had a, I don't know, 2-minute conversation. I have no idea how the rest of us feel about this. We've all been out there, I would expect. Most of us have some knowledge of this area because we've approved something that's gone out here. I remember it from the very beginning. And I wanted to say that because a lot of times people come and they think that we kind of like already know how we're going to vote, and that's not true. In this one, we got quite a few comments that were submitted ahead of time, and the comments typically in a meeting like this, they're one-sided, where they're 99% yes, we want this, and 1% no. What was interesting on this particular item is the comments that we received, I think there was 9 pages of them, were 50-50. There was half that wanted it and half that didn't. And I thought, I don't think that's happened in my experience that I've seen anywhere close to that ratio. I have personally blown through every one of those stop signs. I personally stopped at every one of those stop signs. One of the things I wanted to clarify that somebody had mentioned in a comment, and I think this is right, but I just wanted to make sure. If I was coming from the top of the screen to the bottom of the screen, and I wanted to go to the park, and I was on the, we'll call it the north side of the road, is there a little walk down that you can do to go under the bridge over to the park without having to cross country way? Is that established and built and done? Okay.
There is, yeah.
All right. I just wanted to clarify that because I was trying to, by the way, the comments that I'm sure many people here that submitted the comments are here. There are some very good comments, honestly, on both sides of the issue. Really made me think about it. So I want to just clarify that one. Staff, or commissioners, there's got to be some other questions like that that you might want to ask, and I'll keep that floor open before I open it up to a public hearing. Nobody? No? All right. Eldon, thank you.
Well, sorry, I do have a question for you, Commissioner Anderson. Some of the comments had said that too many stop signs force people through the community, and I'm just on this map. I'm trying to see where they drive through the community, because it looks like they have to stop at a stop sign to then turn into the community and then come back to a stop sign. So I don't see how it forces people through the community. I'm not addressing any other comment. It's just that one. Am I missing something here?
I thought the same thing, but I think there was more of people in the community that would not go out to the main road,
they go around
and then
it.
go down. So people in the community would go all the way down the side streets and then get out. Because I had the same question.
So I can see that. It's just the comment said that people driving on Country Way are going to drive through the neighborhood to avoid the stop signs, and I don't see how that happens unless there's a different map of this.
You'd miss two, but mostly it would be the people in the community, I believe, because
the residents
on one of the videos it showed that he tried to bypass it, but he couldn't. But he was in the community trying to come out to avoid that. Okay. Those stop signs, and that's because I had the same question, and then I realized that's what I believe he was speaking of.
And once it gets opened up to public comment, I mean, maybe people in the community can address that. I don't know.
So everyone gets to witness kind of some of the things that we talk about, but just for between me and the commissioners, between you guys, one of the concerns that I have is that this was brought to, the stop signs weren't here when this was brought to us as a project. It was added by city council after the fact. And we're looking at now wanting or being asked to make a decision about something that city council asked to be put in this project before it's built out to its completion. And so I don't know really, I mean, if we went out 20 years and looked back, would we need all these stop? Let's say we took them all out. Let's say the recommendation is we take all the stop signs out. 20 years from now, we're going to come back and go, holy cow, we need stop signs in there. And then it becomes that, because I don't know if we really can assess. One of the concerns I have is I'm not sure we can really assess what this can do because it's not built out yet over there. I don't know if that means this is just going to make it worse by what we do. I did mention to one of the city council members in probably a 1-minute conversation prior to this meeting, I said, honestly, why aren't we just sending this right back to you? You guys make the decision. You made it in the first place. Now you've got some public coming back to you wanting to know if it should be altered or changed. Who are we to tell you guys what to do? You already said you're going to do it. You handle that. And he said, yeah, just make your decision and send it to us and we'll take care of it. So
Yeah, and I'll address that real quick, because normally we're not talking stop signs in planning commission or city council.
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest with you. It's not a thing. We have access management, we have traffic standard policies that take care of all your stop signs, your speed limits, your all those things. The issue tonight is that it was a condition of approval on a zone change. That's the only reason it's before coming back to this process in the zone change, because it became a condition of approval. If it hadn't been, then we'd just let the public works and maybe even the city council address a roadway issue, right? But because it was made part of the record of the zone change, we had to bring it back. So part of that amendment has to go through you. So, I mean, I get where you're saying it should just go right to city council. Well, unfortunately, you hold the public hearing on zone changes now.
yeah.
They don't. So that's why we're here tonight.
So
you can just give your opinions on the stop, whether you think it was the right thing to do and hold to it, or you can say, yeah, I can see where you might eliminate one or two or all of them. Which if you get to that point, please let me, I'll have a little discussion with you too in that process. But that's why it's here for you before you go into that, is that it was a condition of approval. That's why it has to come to you. And then you can put your recommendation, whether you feel like they were right with 4, or you think, now that we've talked about it and heard this and read on. And again, it was interesting that half and half or the way, because you don't get that. So,
Yeah.
But I hope that answers why you have it. And I wouldn't spend a whole lot of thought. You either agree with the 4, or you agree with 3, or you agree with 2, or whatever it may be.
We should note that the city council meeting doesn't have a public comment, correct?
Public hearing.
Public hearing. And that is why your comments are critical. So the ones that were submitted are on the record and city council sees them. And what will be spoken tonight is critical, because it really comes down to that information is more important. Really, we're an opinion just like yours. We could be speaking on that side saying this. And we'll go from there. Now, public hearing, in my mind, we get our packets, I don't know, Thursday or Friday of last week. We've had a chance to review them, and I've been thinking the whole time, like, how is this public hearing going to go? I can see we're going to get a lot of people, and then half are going to be upset and half are going to love the decision, because it's split. And again, that's never happened in my tenure here. So that's the best thing to do. We'll give our opinion one way or the other. I mean, I have one, and we'll allow the public to come and speak. We ask that you keep it to 3 minutes. I have to give the applicant credit. Curtis, I have never seen somebody submit the type of information you did in completeness. Like, it was awesome. There was YouTube videos galore. There was, I think it was an 11-minute YouTube video that summarized everything for us. We saw exactly what the issue is from the applicant's eyes. And that was awesome. That was good to see. That's obviously on the record. And again, I'm definitely not saying that's everything, because there's a whole nother side of this that totally disagree with. And I agree with that side too on some of this stuff. So it's started to formulate an opinion that I have. So with that being said, I'm going to read the names of the people that had submitted a public comment. Typically, there's no need for you to stand up and say what you submitted. We have it, we've read it. If you stand up there, it's just going to keep all of us here longer. And if that's your intent, I don't know if that makes anybody happier about being here, because we have seen it. Curtis Larson, of course, Cheryl Larson, Dennis Franson, Katie Price Ross, Xander Brown, Edward, I'm going to screw this up, Edward, I apologize, Satella, Clyde Bessinger, Joe Spencer, Marion Day, David Puente, Patrice Holt, Amanda Fionella, Kyle Little, Daniel Hayes, Dave and Linda Christensen, James Borer, Melissa Dunsmore, Laura Lee Jameson, That's it. So if you heard your name and you feel like there's something you just have to stand up and do it, I ask you to be brief. Otherwise, we have your comments, we've read them, and I'm going to go ahead and open the floor for those of you that would like to come up and speak to the agenda item.
Howdy, my name's Greg Savage. I'm a resident of Countryway Estates. Some of this makes sense to me.
I
Some
missed your
doesn't.
name. I'm sorry. I missed your name. Could you tell me?
Greg Savage.
Greg.
Some of it makes sense to me. Number one, on the Palm Cove Avenue stop sign, that very much so should remain. The idea of going under the bridge and to the park doesn't work. It probably wouldn't hold ADA specs. Even a month ago, that walking path was underwater. I personally have
The one I was asking about?
Yeah.
Okay.
I personally have a son in a wheelchair, and he goes to that park. I think number one of all these concerns is safety. I don't see how taking stop signs out, it just raises there's no safety that we're going to accomplish by taking those out. The Oak Creek one, I think that one should stay as well, because as you travel what we'll call north, again, you come over that hill and you crest down into that subdivision, and it's pretty much a blind stop sign to begin with. That would, I'd hate for that one to go as well, because they can't see coming over that hill anyways. I don't believe that going through the other subdivision to pass these stop signs, I don't think people do that. It's kind of dumb. So I think that's about it. I think it's one concern of Countryway, but I think there's a lot more problems out there than just these stop signs.
All right, Greg, before you go, I'm going to ask everybody this question, so I'd like to ask you if you wouldn't mind leading it off. Your vote is not to, your opinion is not to remove all the stop signs. Is that fair?
Absolutely not. No.
Okay, there needs to be some sort of a stop
Yeah.
sign somewhere.
It's the
And you're-
ones around the park for the kids to stay safe.
Palm Cove would be your first choice?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I do agree with yeah, leave Palm Cove, leave Oak Creek, because of, I mean, like I said, the Palm Cove one is right at the bike path. It's
So if you
underwater.
could only have one, it'd be Palm Cove.
To leave?
I'm just curious, like, which is the most important? I'm just trying to say,
I would say
in
the
your
most
opinion.
important is Palm Cove, yeah. The other one is a very close second.
And what would, and Oak Creek would be the
yeah.
second one?
If you drive on that street, which, I mean, like you said, you've blown those signs. When you're coming south, I mean, you can't see over that crest. So to keep accelerating through that flat area, that's horrible. It's a bad idea.
Thanks, Greg. I appreciate it. And anybody else that comes up this evening, I'm probably going to ask you the same question. So if you want to kind of get that answer in your mind, it would be helpful. Thank you.
Hello, my name's Kimberly Monson. So I live in Riverbend, which is right where that Oak Creek Drive sign is. And so I can see children crossing that street of Oak Creek really easily. Like I'm a two-story. And our church, we have both includes both neighborhoods. So there's a lot of children that are from both, that know each other from both sides of the neighborhood. So I see a lot of children going across Oak Creek Drive regularly. You asked about the underneath the bridge. It is also very steep. Mm-hmm. So I know with my family, we have young kids on bikes and they can't handle how steep it is to go down. They go too fast and then they have a hard time going back up. So we never go down underneath the bridge. And then there is also issues of flooding where it was underwater for a while and then it took a long time for it to be cleared from the mud.
Is it from the river? What's
yeah, it's the river. So the river,
high
it got that high a couple months ago.
That trail stub is our regional trails, and it goes underneath the bridge structure that crosses Countryway.
Yeah. I've taken that trail underneath, but I didn't realize the river could come high enough to flood that.
Yeah, I've got a video for you of it this spring.
It was,
Okay.
it was
Sorry.
really wild. It was that weekend where there was a lot of rain, but it was also kind of warm, so there was snow melt. So that gets flooded, and then it took a long time for that to clear. So I'm kind of in the middle with this whole situation, because I feel like removing the stop signs seems really dangerous, but I also recognize that what the stop signs alone isn't sufficient. We cross a lot. We go daily down to the river, but we also go to the other neighborhoods around there, and we often have to like kind of lean out into the road and like wave cars down, because most of the time they don't stop, or they're coming really quickly and we have to kind of flag them down. So I don't know if removing the stop signs we definitely can't just remove them and not do anything else. That's not, in my mind, that's not a good option at all, with how often I see pedestrians and how often I'm a pedestrian. So I don't feel like removing them completely is a good idea, but I also recognize that what there is right now is also not sufficient. So I'm open to other ideas, if speed bumps would be a good option, if a crosswalk with like flashing lights, because right now there is still already a safety issue. Okay, that's my notes.
Awesome. So the question, and you kind of answered it, but if your idea about having no stop signs, you're not in favor of that.
Yeah, that's
If there was
not
going to
gonna
be
work.
1 or 2 stop signs, which ones would you say need to be there? Palm?
Absolutely down by the park. There are so many people, because a lot of people actually come and park there at that parking lot and then cross the street to go get access to the river. Yeah, so Palm Cove, right there on the corner by the park, Palm Cove. There are a lot of neighborhood kids there. There's a lot of neighborhood and church activities there. And there's also a lot of people coming from the rest of the city, parking there and then crossing that street to get access to the river. They're not going down underneath.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Kimberly. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
By the way, Curtis, at some point I want you to come up if you're okay with that. Even though you submitted awesome stuff, I feel like we absolutely should hear from you as the applicant. But all right, anybody else want to come to this item?
You said we're planting seeds, so I'm sorry I didn't make one for you because.
Is this gonna grow?
No, yeah, maybe, but you can share in mine. I'm sure I never spoke longer than 30.
3 minutes?
Larry Stepp.
Larry, I want to see
got
3
it.
minutes out of you, okay?
I
All
got
right.
it. The real problem you have here might be your stop signs, but the violation of the trucks coming down Countryway is the biggest problem. When you stop at the stop sign at Palm Cove, they're already going 55 by the time they get to Washington Dam Road. The size of that 10-wheeler there, if it had 2 beds on the back, would be longer, and you can tell by the curbs on the other side that they're already 5 feet 6 inches over the sidewalk and over the curb. So the real problem for the safety of these kids, children and family and dogs and pets and whatever else you want to talk about, is the misuse of the road. It's a violation. It's not code. If it's not being delivered to a site, those trucks are illegal. They had them shut down. They said they were going to put another one down at Long Valley was a possibility, exit 15, to take the heavy trucks out of there. And those stop signs, I think, are to stop the trucks. But they can get them rolling pretty fast. And I know that might not be what you're voting on. I would say leave those 2 in for sure. And I from California, so it's hard for me to stop at 4 stop signs.
Name those 2 that you just said.
Yes.
Name those 2 that you just said.
The most important, obviously, are Palm Cove and Oak Creek.
Okay, that's what we want to
Obviously.
hear.
But when those other houses get built out, those people might not agree with that right now. Nobody's down there except the landscapers and maybe every 4th house. But you got to get the trucks out of there.
All right.
There you go.
There you go. Thanks. Nice job, Larry. That was less than 3 minutes. I was worried about you, but you did it. No, don't do that. Once you sit down, it's over. You can't.
We're over that point.
I don't want you to keep yelling. All right, sorry, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Anthony, and I live in Red Waters. My backyard borders almost Oak Creek Drive stop sign right there. And I'm definitely in favor of creating a non-commercial zone. They could go around landfill. And I used to drive big rigs, and I've been to multiple states. We've had yards in multiple states, and sometimes there's just a neighborhood or an area that we had to get to where there's one way in, and they can easily go around to landfill, take the 15 to the 7 or whatever that is back there and come on in. But I mean, the trucks go up and down, and people, do their personal best 0 to 60 times from Oak Creek Drive, Fort Creek Drive, Tributary, down to Palm Cove. We hear them all day and night. And removing that, if they're already doing their best 0 to 60 times between those stop signs, what's it going to look like, between Tributary and Oak when there's nothing to even potentially slow them down? And then I got young kids. We go to the park daily. And yeah, I mean, we have to wait, because people will come right up to the stop sign before they stop. So if you do remove it, at a minimum, flashing pedestrian stuff, like I know downtown St. George has some, where they almost look like signal lights because they go over the road and they flash really aggressively. I could be on board for that, but no way, just removing them.
All right. Anthony, same question. So your signs, correct? There needs to be a couple or something. Correct. And if you had one or two, would you agree with what's been said, that Palm Cove and Oak Creek Drive are the two that are important? Or
yeah, but I think that Fort Creek Drive, I mean, as long as you guys have the work trucks, coming over or whatever, because 40 tons coming over that blind hill to Oak Creek Drive, if that's the first stop sign, and somebody's mid-turn coming out on the side of the parking lot, a family in their SUV, and that, because we hear their highway horns, meaning that they're not stopping at those stop signs. At least once or twice a day, a trucker will blow his highway horn to let everybody else know that he's not stopping at the intersection, then just cruise on through.
Because you live right there, Oak Creek Drive stop sign, give or take. If that stop sign wasn't there, but there was one at Fort Creek Drive, what does that look like in your mind? If there was one at Palm Cove and there was one at Fort Creek Drive, but not one at Oak Creek Drive, what does that look like?
I think it's a matter of time before somebody gets T-boned or some kid on his bike gets smoked from some 18-wheeler or, F-550 pulling a trailer that can't stop the same as, a minivan or a sedan.
So it puts Oak Creek Drive stop sign back into being critical or important in your mind.
I do believe so. Yeah, because with that hill, it's super easy to drive through in a sedan. Oh my gosh, yeah, I can see easily. Like, okay, yeah, that's nice. But, bigger vehicles that are going to be there for decades to come potentially, until they finish out all this development, and then all the commercial that's going in more towards the landfill itself is, at least a decade away from that whole area being completely done. So
okay. All right, thanks. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Hello, my name is McCall Janice, and I actually live right on the corner of Oak Creek Drive, and I am very against taking out at least 3 of the stop signs, which would be Fort Creek, Oak Creek, and Palm Cove.
I caught the very tail of that. Taking all 3 of them out, you said?
No, I want to keep those 3.
Keep those 3.
Yeah.
So something that in my mind that's formulating is, again, I mentioned that half the people want this and half the people don't want this. I'm hoping the people that want all the stop signs removed can understand why the stop signs are there. And there's going to be an argument at some point in the evening where somebody that wants all the stop signs there is going to go, yeah, maybe I don't need all the stop signs there. Because this isn't black and white. It really isn't. And going back to this project at the very beginning when they brought it to us, I remember talking about this regularly because it is a commercial area going to the dump and there's commercial zoning out there. And so this is interesting how it's now coming to light that we have an issue. So yeah.
There's just a very steep hill between Fort Creek and Oak Creek. And if there's no stop signs with all the huge trucks that come right through that I hear, I see, I am right getting a front row view of them, I still appreciate the stop signs because even if they're slow rolling through them, that's better than them just blowing right past them with how many kids I see walking, like Kim said, through the neighborhoods to each other's houses.
All right, McCall, thank you. Appreciate it.
It's a long evening, huh? My name is Tui Medina. I as well live in the Redwater community. I have my mom that lives in the Redwater community as well. I have a sister that lives in Red Trails. So we all like to kind of commute and walk to each other. So my backyard is right on Country Way. My mom is elderly, and so she walks to the park with my children. And so she's slow. And so when the big trucks, as you've heard, go down the hill, you know, they might see like human size, but perhaps the little ones, they won't see. And during the summertime, they're running across the street as is. So, you know, there is definitely a safety concern. If you're gonna ask me if any of them should be removed, I'd say no. And if you'd have me pick, I would say I'm not gonna pick. I want them all because for the safety of our children, I too moved from the city. And I moved here because it's beautiful. You guys value community, and as well I do too. And I see the children playing in the park, and it's wonderful, beautiful. And to see the trucks going through these stop signs is terrible. I can't stop that, but if you ask me, these stop signs should still be there, as well as more safety measures for the sake of my children and my mom. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sorry.
Gentleman and lady, my name is Lee Caton. I live on Pomp Cove. That map, by the way, looks to about a year and a half old. It's just built up pretty good out there now. And the reason I came in is just to disagree with whatever this petition is. I want the stop signs to stay for multiple reasons. You know, it takes tax dollars to put stop signs in. It takes tax dollars to take them out. And I think revenue should probably should be made out there. In other words, if people are blowing through those stop signs and speeding, then maybe there ought to be some law enforcement out there writing some citations. Because
making sure the officer heard that.
I mentioned it to him earlier. And I come from a law enforcement family. Also did a lot of time in the military, and you know, it just seems to be a lack of responsibility on people's part. Everyone's in a hurry these days. I'm retired finally, and I just think it would be a big mistake to remove stop signs that are put there for a reason. Slow people down, stop. There's a lot of kids out there. Mine are all grown and moved away, but I kind of pay attention to that. Now, there are stop signs in that Red Waters community, but no speed limit signs. And I built my house on the corner there as it goes around the bend when you take that left on Palm Cove. And I have video cameras at my house, and I can probably supply you with plenty of video of people coming around that corner doing 35, 40, 50 miles an hour, almost losing it a couple of times. So I'm planning on having a bigger rock put in the front of my house because of the speed sometimes people are going around there. And before they built houses, I mean, there were dirt bikes out there, razors out there before the fence went along by the river. It was all dirt. No lots were marked off or anything. And it was kind of a wild ride out there a year ago, but it's better now. I just wanted to make a comment to keep the signs.
Thank you, Lee. Appreciate it.
That's it.
So we have heard, thank you very much. Appreciate it. We've heard from 8 people now that want to keep the stop signs. Is there anybody like to speak to the item about removing the stop signs? Radio silent. All right. Is there anybody in the audience by chance that actually lives on Country Way? One of the like 10 houses or 8 houses that were there before this was built? Okay. I do want you to come back up. I have a question for you. Lee, did you used to come to the meetings when we were looking at this project? How much you guys hated it? Were you one of the people that were there? I've kind of blocked it out, like who came, but I'm interested now that it's built. What you guys are experiencing in a public comment Not
I think
so much about the stop signs, but what
the
do you
misuse of the road. It was built as residential. I think there's really a code when you have 1 acre parcels before you get to residential. It's supposed to be a code for a development of half acres, but you guys overlooked it because there's more tax dollars. I understand that. The idea of the trucks going down there, I had a pool company and we did our own excavation. So we had 10-wheelers, doubles, everything in California. And the misuse of that road, the trucks the road isn't big enough. When our landscaper was there today and the trucks, they really did slow down, because if they didn't, there's only about 2-inch clearance on each side to get past us. It just wasn't built for doubles. You could get dump trucks all day long, but it's still violation of the code. If you got the trucks out of there, you might not need those stop signs. I'm not saying for sure, because you got hot rod kids and 4-wheelers and all that kind of stuff and side by sides. But the problem is those trucks get rolling, and he's talking about a bigger rock. That picture I have with that rock, it's been hit. And that's 5 feet 6 into the sidewalk from the curb. And the one I show on there is a 10-wheeler with a side dump on it. If it had its second one on there, that would have been over the sidewalk.
Yeah.
So I was trying to be generous with that, because I know that you think I'm shifting it, but half the problem is the misuse of the road. We have to get another road that gets those trucks out of there without going all the way around. And the reason they want to go all the way around is it's 15 minutes longer, and that added cost, yards of concrete, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay. Awesome. Lee, thank you very much. Greg, do you want to add anything, or you?
Chairman, if I may chime in maybe quickly before Greg. It is pretty common for folks to come and ask the city to restrict certain types of use on public roads. And it just isn't accurate to say that a road is, the gentleman stated that the road is being illegally used. That's not the case on public roads. Public roads can transport all of the types of uses, as long as they don't violate the state level restrictions. And you've seen some of those sometimes when they get real big and real heavy, the state starts to have rules. But for the most part, residential, commercial, taxi, industrial is all a lawful use on a public road. Now, I'm not saying that they don't have impact. I'm just saying that the use of being there is not a lack of illegality.
Okay.
This area also has been industrial long before there was residential there. And so the industrial uses predate the residential by decades. Now, the road across the Countryway Bridge is not as dated as the uses. That road's been one that has become, I think, at least a preferred route for the traffic that wants to go south of the river, right? There is a planned and proposed second crossing of the river that would align with the Long Valley interchange and then would run along the landfill road. Is that yellow line, Drew? So someday that will come in. That's going to be reliant on funding through the state and UDOT, through the county and Hurricane. And so Washington City doesn't necessarily control when that comes in, and we don't have the funding to pay for it all. But that is supposed to become the regional artery that would tie to the State Route 9 light at the DMV building. And so that's the long-term artery through this area that we believe will become a more popular route for the traffic that's not just residential driven, right? The industrial traffic, the kind of pass-through traffic, we think will prefer that road. It'll be a bigger road. It'll have a little different speed limit, and it'll have better connectivity to the regional routes. But yeah, that there's no guarantee when that's going to happen. If Hurricane City had their way, it would be under construction right now, because Hurricane City really would like to see traffic alleviated at their State Route 9 challenges there, especially when there's events at the fairgrounds. Washington City too thinks that it's time to do it. neither Hurricane nor Washington have the money in the bank to build it yet, and there's other departments that would, and other agencies that would need to cooperate.
All right, it's good to know. Yeah, Greg.
Okay, I agree 100%, but on the road, it's a 65-foot right-of-way, if you will. What happens when you skinny down to a 35-foot bridge? Does it still qualify for that?
Qualify for what?
As being a 65-foot road, as a right-of-way? Because the bridge is only 35 feet wide.
Yeah, so the right-of-way is just a definition of the width of the public route.
Right.
That doesn't
But
mean...
doesn't it have to be 65 feet to run commercial on it?
No, commercial can runs on 35 feet.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. I don't want to get all over the map, but I did have a concern of, back to Mr. Anderson and the sediment ponds. I don't think the left side of Country Way, where does that whole subdivision's water go to? Can you guys look into that for your future?
It's all individual LID. That's what I was saying, is when it's left.
Well, they're not acre
individual.
plus, so they
It's
don't-
kind of the wild, wild west. That's what happens.
So if you walk out there, that whole subdivision's water runs straight into the river. There's no retention pond. So the developer got away with something. So you need to look into that. That's number two.
Man, you just switched gears on me. I was like, what is he talking about?
I live right there. I live
previous...
right there. So I ride my bicycle.
Again, that's why I was on the fence. Is
Yeah.
like, this is a valid concern.
Yeah, that left, whatever, I'm thinking it's Red Waters. They have zero water retention as a subdivision. It goes straight to the river. That's a lot of.
All right, so let's, back to.
Okay, back to the deal.
Being on Country Way, I want to know how this has affected you from when we started to
Okay, I was
now.
there before the bridge opened.
Yeah.
I was there third, if you will. It was originally industrial, and then of course they needed some revenue, so they turned it into residential. That's not a big deal. Whatever. I think the biggest issue out while we're talking about all this tonight is the stop signs, yes, but the speed and the noise really need to be addressed. The speed is ridiculous, horrible. And in fact, I think that cop in the back, he's been to my house because I complained about it. I think
He's a good dude.
I think I know him. So the speed is horrible.
All right.
And the noise, I mean, I don't really know any laws I just try to mind my own business, but is there a decibel level that we have to, because I mean, like the hot rod kids, the semi-truck, the turbos.
Yeah.
Can they be unlimited on their noise?
Yeah, we don't have a noise ordinance, to my understanding,
Okay,
in the state
all
of
right.
Washington.
We have a nuisance ordinance, and noise can't exceed that.
So that is.
Yeah.
Is it for auto and home, or is it?
Well, it's
Anything?
any noise. There's a state law about vehicles that have been modified to be intentionally noisy.
That's everywhere,
But
and that's such a
we're
law
going,
enforcer's job.
and they do.
It's a nuisance.
Those come through our court. The way we're going, though, your whole neighborhood's going to be getting citations daily with how many
cannot
requests.
wait. It's going to be awesome.
But yeah, there is a maximum to noise. You don't make whatever noise you want to make.
Right.
It's a little difficult to prosecute because noise disappears quickly. If it's not getting captured in some way that can become evidence, it's hard.
Unless you're making a point.
Yeah.
Unless you're trying to do something.
Yeah,
So the
it's
speed
hard.
and the noise.
It's hard to preserve noise evidence.
I'm always complaining about, and if you went out there south of the bridge, I mean, even I've been into the city street department, the dirt that comes off of for the SWIP, they're supposed to maintain all that stuff. The dirt, once they go over the bridge, over that noisy crack in the road, and then head south on Country Way, there's so much dirt that falls off these semi trucks.
All right.
I mean, if you
We're
go
getting-
back, I request like about every 2 weeks to have them swept.
Okay.
Excuse me. So
All right.
there's a lot of
There's
stuff
a
going
lot.
on.
I understand.
And thank
Okay.
you.
The last person I'd like to hear, if you'd like to come up, I'd love to hear from the applicant.
While he's coming, I'm going to clarify the statement about no drainage that was just made. I zoomed in on this park because that's the drainage. This is all part of the whole development goes into here. It hangs in there and then goes into the river on natural flows. Just so that's Everybody thinks they didn't have to do anything. No, they did. It's all parked right here. Just clarify. So. Yes. So they call them pipes. No, I'm just kidding you, but that's what it is. There are pipes. Well, I'm not sure how they do it, but there is a drainage plan for it, and that's the major part of it. So,
Curtis, looking forward to hearing from you. Oh, we got one more. Well, okay, come on, go ahead.
I know. I'm sorry. My name is Jaylene Pincock. I live in Redwaters, and the back of my yard is the third lot in from the second stop sign. And I agree with a lot of comments that are made. I think our main priority is safety. In terms of I just wanted to note one thing. There's been a lot of good comments. I'm not gonna, rehash things, but in terms of the noise pollution being a concern, and I think it's a concern for a lot of us, there are no signage or anything prohibiting engine brakes. So I don't know if that's an option we can look at as these bigger trucks, if they're allowed to use the road as a residential area. If we can get that signage, that would at least help with that one concern that has been noted.
Can I ask, would you rather that the trucks use their brakes or that they speed through?
I would like brakes,
Okay.
but I don't need them to be obnoxiously loud at 5 a.m. when my kids are trying to sleep. So I'm all for safety, absolutely. I don't want my kids to be a pancake, but if noise pollution is a concern, I don't know if that's an option that we can look at being a residential area.
Yeah, they're not allowed in city limits, but again, that's another one that happens in city limits and it's hard to
We
prosecute.
just don't even have any signage to try and tell them, hey, please don't do this. So.
All right, thank you. Curtis, for sure, want to hear from you. Like I said, kudos to you. You've given us more information than we've ever seen in an applicant before, which was helpful to us. Introduce yourself with your name and then anything you'd like to add.
My name is Curtis Larson. I live on Mirage Drive in the Sunrise Ridge. So I actually want to give a lot of credit to my wife. She did a lot of the research as well.
I should have known that. I should have, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
My bad. Sorry, my wife's probably watching. Sorry, man.
Actually, so the first thing I wanted to say is Corey had kind of a question about people driving through the neighborhood. So, the park is kind of to the right, and then it goes up to the Deep Creek Drive. So I actually drove that today, respectfully. I kept the speed limit and everything. It's from the park to the end of Deep Creek Drive. It's just over a half a mile, and there are absolutely no stop signs along that way. So my wife and I, we are going on several walks a day, and so we're constantly seeing people, cut through the park and then just drive down Deep Creek Drive. And we've also noticed as we've kind of walked through that neighborhood, people maybe they'll cut in the Oak Creek and then they'll drive up, to their house that's either on Deep Creek, or maybe they'll cut in. But there definitely is very obvious that they are cutting in early to avoid those stop signs. And that was actually probably the first time that we thought, hey, this is a safety concern. And so we wanted to, that was one of the first safety concerns that we made us think about this. So another concern is, I definitely understand safety. So I did put this in the comment, but I think maybe a lot of people don't understand this. So the stop signs actually a lot of times will create a false sense of security. Sometimes kids or pedestrians, it's great if they stop and wait for the cars, that's what they should be doing. But a lot of times kids aren't thinking that. They think, oh, there's a stop sign, this car is definitely going to stop for me. And they're jumping out with, they got the little motorized scooters and they're cutting out into the road, or they're running out to the road. Well, what happens if the car doesn't stop? That's going to create a big, accident, and it's going to hurt the kids. And so that's why we feel like if you remove the stop sign and were to put in something like the flashers, that makes the kid have to, or the pedestrian, have to push the button. Everyone's a little bit more cautious. Obviously, the flashing signs, cars are more likely to see that than just like a stop sign. So we feel like that's why it would be safe.
Yeah.
So, and then of course, there's a lot of people who, brought up the speed issue. We addressed this in our comments. When other cities have researched this, it really, stop signs typically do not prevent speeding. A lot of times people who are speeding are just blown through the stop signs anyway, or they are speeding because of the lost time. They're speeding in between the stop signs. And so there are other ways, if that's really a concern, there are other ways of, maybe putting up the little flashing miles per hour sign or whatever. So if that even becomes an issue in the future. So that's kind of the reasons that we brought this to your attention. Also, people have talked about the noise level. Well, that's another issue when we're on our walks. The car, these big trucks, they'll stop. That's very loud. Then they got to get going again. That's very loud. They're pumping out a lot of smoke. They're smoking us out. So we always try to hurry to get past that, as quickly as we can. And so there's just a lot of these issues. So again, we definitely want safety for everybody. That's not our intention. We don't want to just take these stop signs out just so we can just, cruise on down there. We definitely want safety. And so that's why I feel like the flashing signs would be safer.
Awesome.
Any questions you might
Yeah,
have?
this is the applicant. You're not limited to 3 minutes, so you can stay there as long as you have questions for you. Commissioners, do you have any questions for him?
I don't have any questions for the applicant, but I don't know if I should wait till we close the public hearing or not.
Yeah, Curtis, well, let's do that.
Okay.
Curtis, anything else you want to add? Other than
Real quick, speed bumps. I don't feel like that would be a good solution because, again, I think people are going to get these speed bumps and they're going to just go through the neighborhood so they can avoid it. So, and if nothing is done, I think you guys need to look at some options on that Deep Creek Drive, because like I said, we see it all the time. If you don't believe me, there's an Ents home. You can kind of sit in your car and you can watch people. You'll see people speeding through that neighborhood all the time. So maybe there's some discussion on other things you could do on Deep Creek Drive to, maybe dissuade people.
So trucks are not going on Deep Creek. It's just
not trucks. Residential people are driving on Deep Creek Drive to avoid the stop signs.
Yep, got it.
Awesome. All right, Curtis, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Is Deep Creek the one that's parallel to Country Lane? Okay.
Is there anybody else that had a comment? Perfect.
I have a question. Greg McCombs, Sienna Hills, and the issue doesn't affect me directly. I just wonder if anybody knows why City Council required the 4 stop signs. Thank you.
I've got a good historical story for that, or not story, but account. So if you zoom out a little bit, Drew, this is going to take longer than that. So from about 2005, 07, 08, as the economy was roaring, there was a large development called Sunrise Valley that was platted under a PCD plan for that whole area that is now Redwaters and all these other things. And so it was entitled and platted. The Countryway Bridge was built by that original developer. But then as the market tanked in 09, there were foreclosures, and that bridge had only been partially dedicated to the public. So it's hard to imagine, but about a third of the bridge was dedicated to the public and 2/3 was still owned by a developer entity that had taken the interests that were foreclosed upon. Around that same time, Countryway was building out, and everybody thought, oh, we've got this bridge that's blocked and nobody uses. And so a lot of the Countryway folks have been in these chambers with legitimate concerns, because as they built out, the way that road was used was not consistent with a public thoroughfare. And so the traffic they knew when they were building and moving in is not the traffic that they know today. Sometime after 2009, I would say probably 2012 or 13, the city council acquired the rest of the portion of that bridge with the intent to make the bridge a publicly accessible and usable bridge. And then the rights to develop on the Sunrise Valley side also transferred hands and have subsequently come through, as we can see, and been developed into neighborhoods. And so the Countryway Estates folks have always had again, I call it a legitimate gripe with the city council about the traffic in front of their houses and the traffic across the river. And so they came in as these other projects were coming through and asked for relief from the traffic in the form of stop signs. And the city council imposed those as a condition upon approval. This is an example where enough time has gone by that we've now got feedback that doesn't love the stop signs, at least not all of them. We've got feedback that still does. And so typically stop signs are not political questions. We don't bring them to the commission and council and say, do we want a stop sign here? We take them to the traffic engineers. They do a traffic study, and then they say, and then they do some calculations, and they say the calculations equate to not a stop sign, or the calculations equate to needs a stop sign. And it just depends on the traffic as it's counted and recorded through there. Our preference would be to make a decision through the technical route. The problem is these ones were put into place from the political route. The council put them on as conditions on approval for their subdivision development. And so that's why it's coming back through you as an amendment to the subdivision.
That answered what I was going to say, or leads into what I wanted to say, is that I think that they obviously need the stop signs for the safety, but it needs to go and not be a condition on a plat. I think we should vote to eliminate the condition of the stop signs. I think they should stay, but I think that we should vote to eliminate the condition on the plat, so that if we do need to move them, or they put them in and change them, that we're not having to come back to this. Because if they say, okay, well, we want one on Palm Cove and Fort Creek Drive, and then wait a minute, we do want a flashing one somewhere else, it has to come back and go through all this again. I think we should take it off and let the correct departments take care of this the way that it should be done, rather than coming back through this, like you were saying, Thad. That's my opinion on why we should do it. Why I would say do it to eliminate the conditions in the zoning.
Yeah, so it's just I'm going to add a little detail. It's not a note on the plat, but it was a condition of approval on the zoning. And so if that's removed entirely, that removes all four of them. But we would then go to staff and say, study these intersections, right? Calculate the traffic patterns, and then recommend the best traffic solution there.
I don't think, but I mean, council can make that call, or we're going to leave them in, but we need to for now, and then go back and say, all right, we'll take them out. But by doing eliminating that, it gives everybody, it moves it along faster, rather than coming back and then waiting 2 weeks and then going again and going through the whole process of this mess, correct?
Yeah, we have a future mess like this.
Wait, what? This isn't the last one?
Here's some good detail. The exit 13 roundabout, that big, beautiful roundabout, will someday be replaced by a stoplight. And I'm sure when that happens, half the room will wish for the roundabout and half will wish for the stoplight. And that decision, thankfully, is not conditioned on zoning. It'll just be a technical decision that's made between the city and UDOT, because UDOT and the interstate have some decision making there as well. But yeah, someday as the traffic increases there, the roundabout becomes, inefficient, and so it would go to a lighted intersection. And so I don't know that this road is so busy that we're trying to say, what do we do to upgrade with the traffic? We're still just wrestling with the question is, what's the best way to make this road safe and traveled at proper residential speeds, right? And I trust the council will wrestle with that just as much as you guys have wrestled with it.
Okay. The public hearing still is open. I saw somebody, I think, was it JD? Is that your name? What was your name again? You had one more thing to add, and it's going to be good because
it's not that great. But I just wanted to point out. Oh, sorry, Kimberly Monson.
Kimberly.
There is traffic that goes, so I turn onto Palm Cove by the park up along Deep Creek. So I take Deep Creek instead of turning in on Oak Creek because I need to stop at my mailbox. Because if I was to take Oak Creek down, I have to turn and stop at the mailbox and then do a U-turn. So I feel like there will be less traffic along Deep Creek as some of the roads finish out, because sometimes right now I don't turn on Oak Creek Drive. So he was just commenting about how people take Deep Creek to go through the neighborhood instead of avoiding stops, so they can avoid stop signs. And that's not the case for me, at least. I'm just trying to avoid pulling into somebody's driveway so I can get to my mailbox and then turn back to go to my house. Does that make sense?
It does.
So that's not always the case for people going through the park along Deep Creek.
All right.
So I just wanted to counteract that.
Thanks,
point.
Kimberly.
Okay, thanks.
Is there anybody else before we close the public hearing? Once I close it, we're not going to take any comments. You're going to want to raise your hand, shout, and all that stuff, or we're not going to listen to it. So if you have anything to say, let's do it right now. Sure, because you're the applicant, sure thing. Come on up.
Peter, that's a great point. We actually had emailed the city council, and I had talked to the mayor, and the mayor had told me, oh, well, we'll get an engineer out there and we'll take a look at it and we'll have a professional give their opinion. But that got halted because of this rule. So, again, if we at least eliminated the requirement that every four-way has to have a stop sign, if we eliminated that requirement, then we could leave it up to the professionals, the engineers, to come out and say, yes, we did a study and there should be a stop sign here and there should be a stop sign here, maybe not stop signs here. So I want to echo Peter. That's why I feel like eliminate the requirement and let's get professionals out there to take a look at it.
Awesome. Thanks. Appreciate it. I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing at this time. And commissioners, I'm going to open the floor amongst us again for comments and things. I mean, I'll start where I'm at. I still go back to, if this was built out, I look back, maybe we're going to want all 4 stop signs there. I don't know that. I think this is, obviously it's a city council decision that they put it on. There's people in this room that are going to be there at that meeting, our staff that can help watching as well. I'm a meeting before this one, but they have the ability to watch this meeting, and they do, and they probably will. My opinion is that clearly we have an issue here with regards to the stop signs that needs to be looked at. The item before us this evening is to remove the stop signs. I don't believe I'm in favor of that. And so I kind of know which way I'm going to vote, but I do believe this needs to be looked at. And if I had an opinion, which I do, I believe there needs to be, let me preface this actually. In Carlsbad, where I came from, imagine the left side of that being the ocean. And we had a major road there and everybody was crossing it all the time. And there were stop signs there. And they took the stop signs out and they put the flashing crosswalks in. And man, do I hate those things, but man, are they good. And they're so effective. So anytime somebody wants to go to the beach, which is pretty much all the time during the day, every pointed intersections, they had those flashings. I could see this being a similar situation in my opinion. I'm not the expert, but I do think this needs to be looked at. I'm not in favor of removing the stop signs. There needs to be clearly, I think, 1 or 2, but I'm gonna leave that up to city council. Well, that's what my opinion is on this. And it gears, I'm gonna just go to the end. It gears to me voting no on this because it's suggesting that we remove all the stop signs, and I'm not in favor of that.
This is Commissioner Mitchell. I tend to agree with that. I feel like if they had the flashing lights, if there's a pedestrian needs to cross the street, they push the button, it alerts everybody. But for the most part, when there's not a pedestrian, I think it would be nice for that road to flow. But you want the safety, so when the light is red or yellow, stop. Caution, there's someone wanting to cross the street.
Commissioner Tupou, I am not in favor of removing the signs, but I am in favor of removing the condition because I don't think it belongs there. I don't think it's our role to dictate, where stop signs should be and what should be there and where bumps on the roads go. There's another department that takes care of that. So I'm in favor of removing the condition from plat or recommending approval. But I don't want the stop signs to be removed because it's just not our arena to take care of, so.
Let me just clarify something. Because I agree with what you said, I feel like we're on opposite sides, but we're saying the same thing. I want to make sure that I'm not doing something wrong. If you recommend for approval and you vote yes on it, you're voting to remove the stop signs. Is that correct?
But could you put some conditions on there that there is a stop sign?
You guys can make the motion however you want. He's presented something to you. You have the opportunity to choose that or to modify that to move on to city council.
Okay.
I don't know what his original, request is, but you can send a recommendation saying, kind of see the point, but this is what we don't want to happen. And that's what, it's all about your motion, not what you're making a motion to them on an action for that.
So we could make a motion that the condition, whatever condition it was, be removed from the zoning, the conditional approval.
But you feel you need to leave the stop signs and have it looked at by that.
The stop signs need to stay until they can do a study and figure it out.
Legitimate motion.
I totally agree with that.
Couldn't we make a recommendation of where we feel there could be a four-way?
No, because that's the problem we're in right now.
It's not our situation.
Because then you made a motion based on a planning commission, not a technical engineering public works decision.
The engineers would probably agree with what you might say, but who are we to say it?
But if it changes in 5 years, they'd have to come back to change it again. Yeah. So we're
hopefully not through us.
It would still have to come back through us because it would be in the zoning. It'd be in the probably. That's what I think.
I'm on board 100%. I don't want to see this again because it's not
our area.
I feel, like I said, I've argued both sides in my mind in this meeting 5 times over. So I'm like, oh, great, here we go. So it's not up to me or us as a commission to decide where the stop signs are. I get it. So I'm on board with that. Anything you guys want to add? One thing I do want to add is something to discuss a little bit about the trucks there too, because that's a question I have probably for Thad. But go ahead.
This is Commissioner Anderson. This is a hard one because again, we're not traffic engineers, and I mean, everybody here on both sides of this issue, their overriding concern is safety. I mean, they all ultimately want the same end goal. They just, no one can agree on what's the best way to get there, which is why, this process is supposed to go through, traffic engineers as opposed to being a political decision. And that's the problem. If it's a political decision, it's just an opinion, which may or may not be right. I mean, I don't know what's right. I mean, I do know that, I mean, the big trucks, they're not going to stop, and they're not going to ever be gone until you eventually get that road built, whenever that may be. I mean, it's just the nature of this particular community. I mean, I do think that some of the ideas that were suggested would be great ideas for council to look at, like posting speed limit signs, maybe posting a no engine brake sign, or the flashing pedestrian signs. All of those. I like the idea of painting crosswalks, at these things so people can at least think about people crossing. I think all those are great ideas. As far as whether the stop sign should or shouldn't be there, I have no idea, and I don't think that's not our expertise. I would say if we make a motion to remove it from the zoning requirement, that we also say that none of the stop signs, all the stop signs have to remain in place until Public Works and traffic engineers determine the very best place to put them. I wouldn't want anything changing until they make that technical decision, whatever that is. But I think some of these other things would definitely help alleviate as well, and I think they should be included in that motion as suggestions, at least.
Nothing would move. I mean, council would be the one to make that recommendation. I mean, would make that call, correct? That it was, I mean, like, say we said, all right, remove the condition of the stop signs, and our recommendation is to remove the conditions, but leave the stop signs until it can be,
department can decide
it can be looked at.
And council could say, remove the condition as to Fork Creek and tributary, but not Oak Creek and Palm Cove, right? So council gets to do what they want to do with it.
Right.
We've heard a lot of comments about whether stop signs do or don't slow down traffic. Most of the technical folks believe that road design is what really calms traffic. Santa Clara has, when they redesigned the road through their downtown, was very deliberate about making sure that the lanes were smaller and more narrow, that there were pullouts and planters that kind of made it feel tighter. And so big trucks go through Santa Clara's downtown every day, right? But the traffic, you can feel it slow down based on how that road is designed. You go a few blocks to the east where it's just a big wide road with big wide medians and shoulders, and the traffic's quicker. And so road design to accomplish traffic calming is probably the best long-term solution. But those type of projects also are much more expensive than just a stop sign too. And so the council's going to get to wrestle with this. And
With regards to the trucks, and I remember this when it came through it, and we said, well, who wants to live out here in this industrial area? And now seeing what we've seen, I actually really like it. A lot of residents love living there. I think it's great. I love the park over there. But we still have the issue with these trucks going through. And so the foreseeable future, that's going to continue to happen. From a legal standpoint, is there something the city can do to make that stop now?
so the city has done certain things. For example, we have a contract with the landfill and Republic that collects the trash, and we've asked them not to use that route. I believe some of them still do, right? Probably because they're right there collecting trash and it just makes sense. But so where we've got contracts for use and for services, we're able to do that. But as far as just, can we say, here's an open and public road, but we're going to tell you which public get to use it? Generally, if it's a public road, it's a public road.
Would it be fair to say that, well, because the landfill's there, this probably kicks this question out, but with the businesses that operate right there, I would say they own the majority. I would guess they would own the majority of the trucks coming through there. Is there a way that the businesses can be put on notice? I mean, how many times do their truck drivers get cited before they start to say, if you guys don't stop at every sign, you're fired, or whatever it is? And on one half of the room, they don't want that to happen. On the other half, for safety, it cures that. Is there anything with regards to the businesses that are there that can be put on notice somehow with their truck drivers that will help the issue?
I believe so. So the business is really just the gravel pit, right?
And that's it.
A lot of the truck traffic that's down there is construction related. The trucks that are building all the houses that are showing up. Some of it is trash and just kind of transitory stuff trying to get from south of the river to north of the river. A lot of the big trucks that aren't just going there local like to get out Landfill Drive and get to the state route because it's just a better road for that size and type of truck. The city could choose to, station officers there and inspect, make sure they're all up on inspections at each stop. That they could really gum that place up if we wanted to make it an enforcement center. You would have unhappy residents with that result as well, right? Because somebody's husband's going to get cited a few times. Somebody's husband's truck's going to get, whatever they do with it when it's non-compliant. And so, well, it's usually the husband that misses his inspection and compliance. But yeah, there's things the city can do. Our city council has not been aggressive in trying to be real in the face on this type of enforcement. But certainly, a different policy on that could be adopted and could focus on that area.
Okay. I think the best thing about my role as the commissioner or the chair is I can't make a motion, so I don't have to worry about trying to piece this together. But
so just one more analogy. So we've got an interchange coming off the interstate onto Main Street in an area of town that was gridded with rectangular crossings. We've got 4-way crossings up and down Main Street, not one stop sign on them right now, right? Now, I'm not saying that doesn't mean they should have stop signs, but as places develop and traffic changes and patterns develop, there continues to need to be solutions for traffic. And what Main Street is going to need a solution, and we need a solution here, and hopefully we can find the right one.
Okay.
And I agree with Thad, but if we don't take this condition off, those future changes are going to be harder to be made because they'll have to come back through us, through this department, rather than through the proper channels where it can actually happen faster if it needed to.
So then our biggest concern with the motion is that we craft it so that things like this or this doesn't come back to us because it's not really our expertise, or we shouldn't be doing it in the first place.
Yeah, just to speak candidly, if you take that condition off, you might, and you just say, go study the traffic and do what the study says, you might lose all four of them, right? These aren't necessarily the type of intersections that have warranted stop signs.
But council can recommend one going in without a study, correct?
Correct.
I mean, they can put them where they want, but they have to have them right here because of the condition.
Correct.
So if we take the condition off, council can still say, I want all four of them there, but it's not a condition.
Correct.
That's the point I'm trying to
Well, maybe,
get to.
I mean, we're not actually taking the condition off. Maybe we recommend the council looks at removing the condition and instead looking at technical.
Right, that's
things
kind of what
for
I
it.
said.
That's
I
all, yeah.
recommend taking the condition off, but leaving the stop signs until
they can have a technical review.
Until it can have a review.
I like that 100%. One of the concerns.
But how do we do is that a approval or denial? I mean, we're making a whole different motion than what's being asked for. I mean, I don't know if that's an approval or
My
denial.
recommendation would be to remove the conditions requiring the stop signs, but leave them there until the
review is done.
Until you can have a traffic study done on it to recommend where they go, and then let council make that decision.
We could also recommend some of these other ideas as well, crosswalks, flashing signs, whatever, that they at least look at it in their traffic study. But again, is that an approval or a denial?
You would
I feel like it's
approve
a
what we
denial.
said. We make our own motion on it. He just brought it to us.
Yeah.
We're not recommending this. We're making a recommendation for a totally separate one then.
Oh,
To the extent that your motion includes all your good ideas, I think we're back to where we started, right?
By the way, we've never had, in my opinion, in my time, we've never had a discussion where we're trying to change what it is we're voting on. I think that's why it's a little technical. We're either giving something a thumbs up or a thumbs down based on how it's written and what we see, that we're changing that.
And there's another option you have, Commissioner, I know where you're going. You could actually ask Mr. Larson, are you okay with that? I think he is, because he almost said that. I mean, that's up to him.
Yeah,
To
I
say
wanna
he
blow
feels
people-
good with that, then you don't need to worry about what you're worried about. Because it's his request. You can just ask him, you know what we're trying to do, Mr. Larson, are you okay with that? And if he doesn't, then I would just still say that you make that, noting that he still wants to ask for that, but that's.
So I guess that's what are you okay with us modifying your application?
So I like what Peter's saying, and that was kind of our recommendation was to remove the condition, and then so I guess we want to remove the condition that says it has to have a stop sign, and leave it up to professionals like an engineer, or I guess if the city council wants to recommend that we keep them at certain places. I like what Peter is saying. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I mean, and city council may recommend leaving them up, or the traffic people may recommend leaving them all up. I just think that it needs to be reviewed from a technical perspective is all, and some of these other ideas looked at as well.
I think one of the last comments I want to add is make sure you keep up the fight, all of you in here, because what I'm really hesitant to see is that this gets put to city council and then 2 years from now, they're still studying it. I'd be afraid of that. So I'd keep fighting your battle, because I think there is an issue here on both sides. City council doesn't even look at and finish. So I'm happy to push this off to them because that's where it belongs, but I'm real hesitant to see it fall into the government quagmire and be there forever.
I'll take a stab at this, I guess. I'll make a motion to approve a modification of Z-23-08. about the intersection at Countryway and Palm Cove Avenue, Oak Creek Drive, Fort Creek Drive, Tributary Drive. Make a motion that City Council reviews the condition of requiring stop signs at all the four-way intersections and to have a technical review done on that to determine, now that people live there, to determine the best possible location for stop signs. Also, that City Council looks at additional options such as crosswalk, striping, flashing pedestrian signs, speed limit signs, et cetera, as means of slowing down traffic and enhancing safety.
Engine brake signs and.
Yeah, engine brake signs, et cetera.
So is that removing the condition then?
First thing I said. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's, again, this body just recommends to them, so they'll have to decide what really happens to the condition. I think his motion is saying supporting removal of the condition, but with statements of supporting continued effort to manage and improve the traffic situation.
Melody, I will modify in there that we recommend that none of the stop signs be removed in the meantime until full technical review, gets looked at, and we recommend enforcement of traffic laws.
That's Commissioner Bullock. I'll second.
Applications for the planning department will be forthcoming. You guys can all join and do this yourselves if you want.
You can always move this rock right to the edge of the sidewalk there.
I've got a motion by Melody. Do you have any reason we need to restate any of that, or do you make sense of that motion?
No, I'll probably just listen to it in the morning.
Yeah, it probably might take a couple of mornings, but okay. I've got a motion by Commissioner Anderson, a second by Commissioner Bullock. Individual voting: Tupou.
Aye.
Shield. Aye. Anderson.
Aye.
Bullock.
Aye.
I'm Hanson. I'm an aye as well. The amended motion passes, and we'll send that to City Council. Thank you all for your comments that you submitted and speaking this evening. Thank you for the applicant for bringing it to the attention of City Council. And like I said earlier, please continue to fight what you believe in on this particular item, because it's going to need a little pushing along the way, I believe. So thank you all for coming. Commissioners, is there anything else that we need to talk about this evening or be brought to the body at this time? Oh, you have something now?
When you say continue the fight, you mean talking to the City Council?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep, absolutely. I'd make sure that they all know who you are and you know who they are. Commissioners, anything else? Or I'll look for a motion to adjourn if we have nothing else.
I make a move that we adjourn this meeting.
Got a first and a second to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, meeting's adjourned. Thank you all. Appreciate it.